Okay, hey, changing plants every day. George Golf coming at you from the STEM lab this morning. Good Saturday. I figured I would do another video resume. It's been a while since I've done one. I just like to keep mine update. At least every 6 months you should be adding something to it. A new skill, a new personal thing that you're doing. You're always studying, you're always learning, and you should definitely always be putting something to it as much as possible. So, without further ado, so I'm 30 years old, live in Hancock, New York, single. I don't know why that matters on a resume, but sometimes it does. Uh, some past work history that I've done is I've been a pretty solid laborer for quite a while. Did a lot of stuff, a lot of stone docks. Tompkins, Bluestone, Johnson and Rhodes is where I'm at right now, but I've come back and I'm actually hanging out there right now. Devonian stone, done landscaping for a few different places, hardscape and stone walls, whether it be freeset stone walls or concrete block ones where you actually put a veneer, plywood, and then that black paper, mesh wire, mortar, and then you're sticking up stuff. Brickwork, a lot of leveling out the ground, tapping it, using spulcher, crusher runner, whatever you're going to use for it. What else? Woodworking, a couple of different places. I used to make cabinets over at Knapp Woodworking. Real cool place. We would do hardwood, and we would also do the MDF stuff, or not quite the MDF, I forget what it's called, the waterproof one. And we would actually put the veneers on it, spray it down with a spray gun and with the glue, and then actually put the veneers over it, roll it all out, sand it down, hand sanders and what have you. Spray booth stuff. Over at Integrated Wood Components, I was a CNC operator. I was also over there an assembly line worker. I was in chair one. I would actually start the prep and do all the gathering materials and setting up the pallets and doing everything like that, shipping them off to the trucking side of it, and they would take it from there. Biscuit groovers, toe notchers, big stack of stuff, industrial tools, saws, what have you. But normally I get most of my trade base from stone. That's working big gantry saws. I've worked 8-footers, 10-footers. What were they? One was a Python, one was a Predator. Big whole buildings. We'd load them in with big fork trucks, big blocks. 2-ton, 3-ton rock. Whatever they were. And we would cut them up. Clean them off. Then we'd pull out all the stock and put it on pallets, and we'd work it, burn it, cut it with saws, other smaller gantry saws or table saws, what have you. A couple of different tread lines in stone mills, hand honing, rock facing, things like that. Technical, arty kind of things. Where most of it, we'll get into the specialty skill base of it, which is not what you would think. It's actually STEM mechanics, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And I've always considered myself a SWAG Incorporated guy. It's a small business model that I've done for handyman, just making some money on the sides for people, being a trusted guy that to give you a call, you form a little quote for what job you're doing, kind of figuring out your timelines and what have you. That's a great base to have, and it's a really good base to have when you walk into a manufacturing system like that. It's awesome. And stone is one of the most hardest applications for it. You can never really determine it. In woodworking factories, it's usually coming at you stock. The board is the board, and you're going to make that board, and short of reasons what that is, it's a 4x8, and you're going to cut it into whatever, 2x4, or what have you. You don't have a lot of variable on what have you. Net woodworking would be the example, because we would actually take hardwood sheets, or the exemption from that, because we would take hardwood sheets or veneer sheets that are already done, and there you had to match up edges and stuff out of one piece. But in the docks and stuff in the mills for stone, it was it's we have to. Timelines are very different. Rock sizes coming in the door that get cut up are very different, and you can't always guarantee, well, I got 7 cuts out of this, that I'm going to get 7 rocks, or to the yield of, I'm going to cut 1x1s out of that, I'm going to cut 18x1s pattern, I'm going to cut 1x3 treads out of that. So you can make any of those choices. They're yielded off of that base, but you have to work them generally first to determine whether it's going to be a solid product. You can burn a rock and then have it not be any good. You can stock burn it, have to separate it, put it out in the yard, and do something else with it later because it's not conducive to treads, because you can just read rock. You have to be able to read color, quality, pre-cutting it. If you're putting rock to the table that you're going to cut, and it turns out not to be a hit, or you can't judge your cuts before you put them to the table to eyeball measure them to say I'm going to get a 2x3, 2 foot by 3 foot piece, or I'm going to get 2 of them, or I have to map that out. I'm going to get a 2x3 off the end, and what have you, whatever else there's going to be, and I got to rip a 1x system off, 1x3s and a 1x2 or a 1x18 off the bottoms of them. Pull that stuff off, put it back to the table, make pattern hits, playing your time games like that, and also in stack systems, because what we'll do is we'll take not just 1 2-inch or not inch slab, we'll put 4 or 5 of them on the table together, and you have to separate them on your bay after you've burnt them and kind of shuffle them all into the correct system. And at the end of it, we use the remainders of which ones don't match up, which ones aren't going to make the solid hit in a timely, efficient manner. They don't all have to be perfect, but I have to look at the majority hits to say, is it worth my timelines because of working systems and space confinements inside of the bay. Not just the bay, but the entire building or the outside yard. You have to kind of be mentally aware of all of those things that are going on. Plus working time. I thermal my own stuff right now. I'm cutting my own stuff. I get my own orders given to me. And I'm just kind of responsible for determining what timelines they are for it, looking at what stock I want to grab for it, judging the colors correctly. Does it have vein in it? Does this need to be a pristine order for what kind of system it's made for? Is it a smaller order that I can kind of allow the vein to go into, but I have to be uniform with all the vein across the board with all the rock that I got? Are we cutting specifically for this hit that's all got to be bottom bed, top bed? Another quarry where we're bringing in rock that gets cut up. All those things are, judged, and we call it grading the rock. So grading is determining those things, but also looking at the features before you go to make the hits. And again, when you're stemming time systems out like that, when you're stemming your space systems out like that, it's a time and space management game, because if you're a little off, you may not think about this much distance between 2 pallets next to each other and how critical it is. But if you miss that and you're trying to put 5-footers next to 6-footers and you got forks coming in and out all day, they're going to eat that. They're going to fucking beat that up, tear it up on you, and you're going to wind up starting over again, breaking a lot of product. That's not necessarily your fault, but if you're aware of it, you know why it is your fault, because you didn't necessarily set up your bay correctly. You didn't necessarily set up your spaces correctly. Too tight, you're going to work a pallet, and you're not going to be able to work the edges, tap the edges before you burn them after you've cut it. And, that means I got to stop operation, move things around, and you're killing your own timelines. Pre-measuring blank spaces for your pallets, with overhang on them, so that way you can judge if you have enough room. Pre-stock before it comes in the room. I know I got 10 footers coming in the building. Do I have space for 2 of them? Is this, I'm set up for that. I have a stack of rock already set up. Is it going to fit onto that notation? Do I need to take some stuff out? Right now, working dumpsters. We bring a big loader in, we dump our dumpsters, any kind of rock that's not conducive, we add it up. It comes up. We're high volume. are we making a wall stone order today? Is when it comes to what kind of scrap we're using, and all those things. And you have to be aware of all those things as much as the safety of having all your gear. Usually I got masks on, a couple of pair of hoodies, Hogman winter waders, blue jeans, thermal shirts, thermal pants. Usually I have my striker, my chisel, walkie-talkies, deck to the hilt, knee pad, shin guards, steel toe boots. You got to know all that stuff as much as good dynamics and hand signals with your crew members that you're working alongside with, your foreman on the floor, the foreman assistant, the president of the company. What kind of timelines are they looking for? Can they trust your opinions and your quotes to rock that's not worked? It's just stock rock sitting there. I can burn a couple of them and kind of tell you, look, you need to run that stuff again because we're not going to have enough of it out of that head. Or I have enough here plus some extra scraggy stuff outside that we couldn't use. It was overburdened from the last, we had too much of it, or it wasn't good for the order we were doing before, but this is a smaller cut, so I'm going to go out there and grab some of that stuff. And you could be a month in line on this cut you're working and just get that rock today, and kind of have to know all that stuff to kind of give them a general quote line to, when you're doing it, as much as being a productive, efficient worker that's slamming it out for 9-10 hours a day, maybe longer. I mean, some stone docks over at Devonian, I was working 12-hour days, 70-hour weeks and stuff. Hands-on as a foreman assistant, doing breaks for guys. We would they would go out and take lunch while I would stay on, or I'd replace a guy, things like that, working their tread lines, doing the bays in their arc shop, finishing shop. I've done big orders, Princeton University. I've done a couple of colleges over here at Johnson and Rhodes. Big high-end stuff. Really, a lot of the little ones, all stonework is going to be generally high value rock, because when you're doing them for orders, not just some company's stock system, those are going to go out to do something nice, a really nice stone walkway, steps, what have you. So there's water jets, there's big gantry saws, giant fork tricks, loaders, dumpsters. I mean, all that kind of stuff has to go on. Being in line with proper maintenance for your equipment, something you need to do, not just your big machineries, but when I say maintenance, I also reference inventories and things like that. You got to know. In woodworking, it was sandpaper, grits, glue, paint, things like that for your stone docks and things like that. It's, making sure that there's enough gloves, tape measure, safety goggles, that, if you're going to start a project, that you got all the honing pads ready to go, that your chisels and your hammer and your rock facing sets are both handy where you need them to be, and also correct. I got to grind this down here pretty soon. It's getting to the point where she's starting to mushroom pretty good, so you want to take that stuff in mind. There's a lot of things that can bite you and kill you and things like that, and knowing that those things need to happen at certain times in windows where it's correct to do them, not just, oh, well, in the middle of an operation we're going to go over. No, you got to time those things out correctly. And again, so that's what a lot of that is, and that's what STEM and swag is about to me. You're looking at the science of each tutorial process, whether it be thermaling, rock facing, laying a bluestone patio or walkway wall. There's a how it's made kind of tutorial to it, and it's all based in singular moves. Each have a frame that when you look at a system of what rock I'm thermaling, or timelines that go into that set, the space and time management of the quantum mechanic process that's involved in that. It's science, technology, engineering, the field. I use general law Groundhaven Way from Sun Tzu to kind of describe that. What is the general? When the ground changes, all the havens change, all the timelines change, all the ways change. The quotes change, everything, and you got to be very micromanaging by understanding that. Johnny on the spot. So This will be step one, video one of that. Obviously, there's a lot more to it. Catch you on the next one.